y'all doing? How are y'all feeling? If you are new here, I am Raina Swan, aka your new book bestie. And today we are doing something that I actually enjoy, which is an art taste test. I get a lot of different arcs from Macmillan Publishing Company. Now, sometimes, I'm gonna be honest, sometimes I don't read them. Sometimes I don't even get to them, okay? If I'm enjoying what's on my own personal shelf and I don't really want to get into what they've sent me, it just sits here in the archives, okay? So today we're going to be reading Penitence. I've heard a lot of good things about Penitence. It releases, it already came out January 27th. According to Macmillan, this app they got me on. But I'm really excited. Let's see what the Goodreads is hitting for. The Goodreads reviews are hitting for. Because I've been seeing this all around town. And I was like, oh, you mean to tell me I've been sitting on something actually good that I could have been reading? Yeah, so it's averaging 4 stars on Goodreads, and that's kind of good, okay? Right off the bat, Jamie on the Goodreads reviews is talking about broken. This is a contemplative, character-driven novel that explores broken relationships, broken trusts, and broken promises, and broken systems, broken bodies, and broken hearts. Jamie is distraught, okay? And she says, but it's also about finding the way to forgive and move forward, okay? So what is this book about that has Jamie so broken? It is about, let me pull up the synopsis that they have on the app. So it is filled with literary insight that compels listeners to consider whether the worst thing you've ever done is all that defines us. So it goes into the synopsis and it says, when a shocking murder occurs in the home of Angie and David, their lives are shattered. Desperate to defend their family, they will turn to a small-town lawyer, Martine, for help. But Martine isn't just legal counsel. She's also the mother of Angie's first love, Julian, a now successful New York City criminal defense attorney. As Julian and Angie confront their shared past and long-buried guilt from a tragic accident years ago, they must navigate their own culpability and the unresolved feelings between them. Spanning decades from the ski slopes of rural Colorado to the streets of pre-9/11 New York City and back again, Kristin's debut novel, Penitence, is an examination of the complexities of familiar loyalty, the journey of redemption, and the profound experience of true forgiveness. So this sounds a little deep. It sounds real deep and messy, but it's giving slow. I feel like this might be off to a slow start and then the tension is just going to build. It's a builder. That's what it's giving. So let's listen to the first chapter. Y'all, the first chapter is 43 minutes long. What could you possibly have to say in 43 minutes, Christian? Let's just see where this goes, okay? Because I'm already getting a little nervous now that I'm seeing that it's 43 minutes. It's a 43-minute chapter. The next chapter is 33 minutes. Then it's 29, 13, 28, 52 chapters. 52 minutes in chapter 6. Chapter 7 is 43. Oh, my God. Let's just go into the prologue. The prologue is 6 minutes long. Let's see what the prologue is giving, okay? Because we might not do all 43. I'm sorry. We're going to see. If it's good, we might, but okay.
Each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. Brian Stevenson. Prologue.
Let's see.
Nora Sheehan sits in a jail cell in Lodgepole, Colorado, surrounded by 3 cinder block walls and the kind of steel bars she's only seen on television, gray and cold. She's 13. The woman she might become still a shadow, even though she's ready to discard her childhood. A longing for her stuffed penguin, a gift on her 4th birthday from her older brother Nico, grips her with an intensity she doesn't understand, and she twists her thin arms around her shoulders, a featherless bird warming herself with naked wings. She doesn't look like the sort of girl who just shot her brother. The 2 cops in the adjoining room, arguing about what to do next, don't stop to think about whether or not Nora is cold. Lodgepole, a 3-hour drive from the nearest small city, is not equipped to handle a murder or a murderer, and not equipped for a 13-year-old criminal of any kind. The older cop is thinking of his 14-year-old daughter, sleeping at home under a polka-dotted comforter, and her upcoming quinceañera, when she thinks she'll become a woman. The younger cop is thinking of how quickly the life drained out of the 3 holes in a dead boy, how quickly a human body pales without its blood. Both wring their hands, at times squeezing so hard their fingertips blanch. This kind of thing doesn't happen in their town. It only happens on the news. It can't be real. Angie Sheehan is at home, in the purple house on Pine Street with chipped paint, staring at the crime scene tape covering the door to her son's room. The same tape covers the door to her daughter's room. Nico's bed lies empty, and she wishes she could sink into the faint imprint his body made on the mattress, smell the sweetly masculine body spray he convinced her to buy to mask his burgeoning teenage odor. Angie shivers, not from shock or terror, but because when her husband David left to find a lawyer, he left the front door cracked. And a cold draft winds through the house. I should go close that door, she thinks. We can't afford a higher heating bill. Not now. She's alone with the noises of an empty home, noises that will rattle around the rest of her life. She closes her eyes against the crime scene tape, the cold, and the leaden dawn leaking through the window at the end of the hallway. Across town, David pounds on Martine Dumont's door. He's here because Martine didn't answer her phone. Why would she at 5:25 a.m.? And he's already pressed the doorbell once, twice, 3 times. He stood behind her yesterday in Bee's Market when he bought ginger molasses cookies, Nico's favorite, so he knows she's in town. He's always felt a slight distaste for Martine because she handles the ugly divorces and represents criminals like the girl 2 counties over who left her newborn baby in the trash behind the high school. And because she's Julian's mother. When he watched her answer questions about that girl's trial in a press conference, cool and collected, his distaste morphed into a revulsion that brought bile to his throat. How could a mother throw away her child? And how could Martine defend that mother? But now he needs her. He needs cool and collected. He pounds harder. Martine, still blissfully asleep, not yet a part of the unfolding tragedy, is on the left side of the bed even though her husband Cyrus has been gone for more than a year. She fell asleep to the hoots of a great horned owl echoing through the house's metal chimney. Hoo, hoo, hoos, cascading into each other, in a gentle reverberation she felt rather than heard, a synesthesia pattering up and down her limbs. When the pounding finally wakes her, she jolts. Someone has died. That's the only reason for a knock on the door at this hour. Julian, she thinks wildly, but only momentarily. He wouldn't have named her as an emergency contact, not after all this time, and not when he lives in New York. Someone warning of a fire, maybe, but it's late in the season. Snow already blankets town, a dreary layer of heavy white slop that blew in from the northwest 2 nights ago and caught the snowplows by surprise. It cheered early season skiers, but depressed everyone else. The pounding is probably just a bear knocking over a trash can, searching for food to fatten up before hibernation. She puts on a pair of sweatpants, hopping to pull up the left leg and stubs her toe on the nightstand. When she yells, "Shit!" and leans on the edge of the bed to rub away the pain, her then-living husband, her younger self, and the little boy versions of Julian and Gregory stare at her in a 2-dimensional reproach from a silver picture frame on the nightstand. Julian, who can't remember the last time he spoke to his mother, is 2 time zones away and already at work. He's a criminal defense attorney working in Manhattan, unaware the consequences of his long-ago actions have blossomed, an efflorescence he never anticipated. Martine will be on the news by tonight. Her tight-lipped quote about her newest client repeated again and again in sound bites, parsed by journalists to attract a Schadenfreude-obsessed world. When he sees the headline, sitting in the back of an Uber on his way home at midnight, he'll stop scrolling to skim the article. Partly because the murder took place in Colorado, and partly because it's similar to cases he sometimes takes pro bono. When he sees Martine's name, he'll slow down and read more carefully. And when he sees the name of his hometown and the killer's mother's name, Angie Sheehan, he'll turn his phone over and look out the Uber window, not seeing or hearing the honking cars crowding a blocked intersection. And Nico? Nico is in the morgue. Chapter 1, October 2016. Martine is fully awake by the time David finishes explaining what happened, or what he thinks might have happened. Not because he took a long time in the telling and gave her time to make the morning coffee, but because he spat out the whole story in one breath, and this shock eclipses the shock of her stubbed toe from moments before. She can't process it as a murder so much as a blight. Yet another on poor Angie, who was already sandwiched between caring for a mother with Alzheimer's and a sick son. Nico, only 14, had recently been diagnosed with juvenile Huntington's, even before this. Angie wore the strain of her life with grace, but Martine hasn't seen her smile in a long time. They're standing in the foyer, frigid air sneaking past the door David left cracked behind him, snow from his boots melting onto the warm floors. He's wearing shorts and a t-shirt, even though the weather already qualifies the season as winter, and Martine looks up, embarrassed by the intimacy of the wiry hair on his calves. He's a law enforcement ranger for the National Park Service and should be used to being outside, to feeling hot in the summer and cold in the winter, but the bare legs covered in goosebumps seem like a crack in his armor, an admission of how desperate he is. A gap in the floorboard sucks up the water pooling next to his right foot, absorbing it into the innards of her Victorian house. "I'm sorry," she says idiotically. Because what does that really mean? That she'll bring over a casserole? That the sorry could somehow ameliorate what happened? The words, emptier than they usually are, hang in the air between them. David shifts his weight and dislodges another clump of snow from the top of his boots. More water to warp the already warped oak floor. His auburn hair, streaked with fading red on his temples, sticks up in greasy clumps, but his eyes lock onto hers like a too-firm handshake, unwilling to let go. "We need you. They took Nora to the jail." Martine looks at him silently, trying to maintain her poker face. It's always been one of her best features as a lawyer. No one ever knows what she's thinking. "She's only 13, he says. "A kid. There must be different procedures for kids." "David, I'm retiring in a couple of months. I can refer you to a lawyer who will do a better job than me. I've just done one case like this, and it was only attempted murder." She can't take on new clients. She's 72 and tired. Tired of mean divorces and bitter custody cases and lawsuits for missed rent. Tired of writing wills for worried parents and drafting contracts for the new liquor store and defending ski bums for public intoxication. The past few years, she's felt like a sin eater, defending her clients for all their wrongs, keeping their secrets. Somewhere along the way, the magic of being a lawyer, of representing each person to the best of her abilities, of arguing and positing and compromising, wore off. She's slowly been transferring her clients to another attorney in town who bought her practice, a younger woman still hungry for work, still building her client list. She knows David knows this because Lodgepole is a small town. Everyone knows everything about everybody. David returns her look with his own poker face. "Angie said you'd say that, but Nora needs a lawyer." "Yes," thinks Martine, "but not me. Especially not for this family. Still, Nora is just a kid. She shouldn't be in a jail cell, and the woman who bought her practice doesn't do criminal defense work. She's part of that new generation that only does what they want to do, as though they're too good to get their hands dirty, and sends all those cases to a law firm in Waring over an hour away. Angie said you should do it because of Diana. We can't afford anyone else. We already took out a second mortgage to pay for Nico's medical bills. You're it, or she ends up with a public defender." She knew that was coming and nods her head once, not wanting to seem enthusiastic, or worse, like she knows she's caught and has to do it. Wait here. Give me 5 minutes to get dressed. He nods back and folds his arms across his chest, wrapped in his own layers of hell, impervious to the wind now surging through the open door. And she decides to not ask him to close it. As Martine and David cross the empty parking lot in front of the jail, she's grateful for one thing. The town is still asleep. When it wakes up, there will be a firestorm of attention, and not just from nosy neighbors in Lodgepole. She hated dealing with the media when she represented the 16-year-old who abandoned her baby. All those reporters looking for a story, looking for someone to blame. What? Why? How? Whose fault? The teen mother's fault. The teen father's fault. The state's fault for not advertising its safe haven laws. Your fault for representing a criminal. The mother's fault. All those pointed fingers will now be pointed at Nora, at Angie and David. Maybe, once again, at Martine. She hesitates just a moment, then opens the glass doors leading into the lobby and steps inside. It's not much of a lobby, given that the jail is only an extension of Lodgepole's small police department, built in the 60s next to the then-new red brick courthouse. The glass doors do little to keep cold air out. Angie at least has a coat, but like David, she wears shorts and a t-shirt, maybe what she slept in, and the unzipped puffy jacket hangs off one shoulder. Julian once loved Angie, and Angie once loved Julian, decades ago, when they were in high school. And an unexpected tenderness for her overwhelms Martine, eclipsing her uncertainty about taking this case. Angie seems unaware she's shivering, and Martine pulls the jacket all the way onto her shoulder and zips it, gently sweeping her uncombed hair to the side. The fluorescent ceiling lights give Angie's face a sallow hue, and Martine feels like she's seeing a future version of her. Old Angie, or about to be interred Angie. For a moment, mired in the impossible pain Angie must feel, Martine forgets she's here to work. I'm so sorry. The empty words erupt from Martine's mouth again before she can stop them. But Angie doesn't hear her because she's already moved toward the two cops sitting behind the desk. I want to see my daughter. The older one, Ignacio, clears his throat. In Martine's experience, he's gruff but fair. He seems baffled, though, unsure of the rules for a young teen who shot and killed her brother. I don't know if that's allowed, Mrs. Sheehan. Of course it's allowed, snaps Martine. Nora's 13. The sheriff said she'd be back as soon as she showered. She's in charge. My daughter shouldn't be in a jail cell. Angie's voice wavers, and she looks at David for support. He grips her hand but doesn't say anything, perhaps afraid his own voice might waver and betray his uncertainty about where his daughter belongs. That's all we have. We don't have another secure location for a kid who... Ignacio stumbles, then stops. He seems unwilling to say the rest of it out loud. There's a procedure for this, the younger one, Colin says, nodding his head as if it will support what he's saying. There must be. Mrs. Dumont is right. We can't keep a kid in there. Ignacio, exasperated or frustrated or uncertain like David. And Martine steps forward because this is ridiculous. She can see her lawyer. She taps her fingers on the desk and stands up as tall as her shrinking body allows. Let me see her, or I'll call Judge Castro and let him know what's going on in this police department. Ignacio finally nods at Colin, and Colin leads Martine behind the desk and down a hall. The linoleum squeaks under her wet boots, and it's hard to tell whether the dingy floor is gray or just coated with a layer of grime. The sound grates on her, and she tries to erase the noise from her steps by setting each foot down quietly, by making herself smaller and lighter. But before she can succeed, they've left the hallway and moved into the cell blocks with cement floors. You can talk in her cell. Colin unlocks the door and motions for Martine to enter. Nora stares at the floor. Goosebumps cover her bare arms the same way they covered David's legs. Tiny hairs protruding from each one, searching for heat or comfort or something other than this reality. Her hair, redder than David's, hangs in strings down her back like yarn. Her shoulders barely fill out her t-shirt, as though they're nothing more than a hanger in a closet. Get her a blanket or a sweatshirt or something, Martine calls after Colin, hoping he hears her. She sits on the edge of the hard bench, facing Nora. She only took that case with the abandoned baby because no one else would. and her knowledge of criminal defense law is too basic for her to be defending a homicide. She has no idea where to start, what to say. Do you remember me, Nora? My name is Martine Dumont. I'm a friend of your mother's, and she asked me to talk to you. I'm going to be your lawyer. Friend. Is that what she is to Angie? She used to be friends with Angie's mother, and together they broke up, Angie and Julian, after Diana died. Saying I am your mother's ex-boyfriend's mother would not be comprehensible, or even matter to Nora. Friend will have to do. Nora's eyes, still aimed at the floor, dart back and forth as though she's searching for something in the cement. Are you okay? Asks Martine, her voice softening. Her history with this family shouldn't matter. Nora is just a girl. She takes her jacket off and drapes it over Nora's shoulders. You won't have to stay here much longer. As soon as the sheriff gets back, she'll drive you to Pinion County Juvenile Detention Center. That's the detention center where delinquent kids from western Colorado go while they wait for their trial to start. You'll be with other kids there. You shouldn't be in this jail cell. Martine winces at the word delinquent. It's the correct legal term for what Nora is, but it sounds both worse and better than it should. What kid wants to be called a delinquent? But also, Nora is much more, much worse than a delinquent. She'll be here soon, and I won't be able to talk to you again until tomorrow, so we need to talk now. Martine continues. I know you were awake all night, and you're tired, but I need to ask you some questions, okay? Everything you say to me is subject to attorney-client privilege. That means I can't talk to anyone about it, and what you say is safe with me. Nora holds perfectly still, her darting eyes now locked in a numb gaze at nothing. Martine has represented kids before, but always older teens, ones caught selling weed or alcohol, or driving under the influence. What could a 13-year-old understand about attorney-client privilege? What could Nora understand about what she'd done, about the consequences of killing a person? Can you tell me what happened last night in your house? What happened with Nico? Nora looks like an unfinished statue, a marble figure frozen in place by a sculptor who forgot to add life to his creation. Martine keeps her face still, but the silence between them grows, and she shifts her weight on the bench. Would yes or no questions help? Let's try that. Did you call 911 last night to report that you shot Nico? Nothing. What did you say to the 911 operator? Nothing again. Somehow Martine has already veered away from yes or no questions. Shit. She tries to reset. Does your dad keep his work gun in the house? Not only is Nora not speaking, she isn't shaking her head yes or no. She's almost catatonic. Did you shoot a gun last night? Did the gun go off by mistake? Martine feels her voice getting edgier, and she forces herself to stop asking questions and think through what she does and doesn't know. Nora might need a guardian ad litem. Her parents will be conflicted out because they're the parents of both the killer and the victim, and she'll definitely need a juvenile psychiatrist. Nora shot Nico point blank 3 times, once in the eye and twice in the chest. It would be almost impossible to argue in court it was an accident. And if it was intentional, Nora must be having a mental health crisis. Otherwise, a 13-year-old could not have done this. Would that...
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there because we still have 27 minutes left. This is really, really good. Kristin is a little long-winded. Like, some of the stuff she was writing, I'm like, girl, this is why the chapters is 52 minutes long, because you're writing about the water seeping into the creeks of the house. Like, why are you so descriptive like this, girl? Girl, are you okay? It's okay to be a little vague here and there. Pull that pen back, ma'am. Pull it back. But what did you guys think? I am just like, wow, this is actually really good. And I'm like kind of a little invested, like, why did she shoot her brother? If I was Angie, the mother, or, the dad, I would be absolutely heartbroken. I wouldn't know what to think. I wouldn't know how to process any of this. Like, how do you grieve for your son, but then, not be angry with your child? Because clearly something's going on with Nora. Like, I don't think Nora shot Nico for no reason. There is a reason this little girl took her brother out. Now, was it valid? That's what we need to get into. And it seems like Nora is not going to start talking until later on in the book. Now, the attorney, Martine, I don't know if she should be representing Nora. Just for the simple fact that you don't have any homicide experience. You're just kind of like a friend of the family. So why are you even here? You know what I'm saying? Like, could we possibly have found a better person? Don't you have connections? Maybe she could have found one of her lawyer friends who do have more experience. Because it's getting a little too close to home. You don't have the experience. The daughter mama done dated your son. They fell out. Now you kind of like, you kind of cool off the mama, but you got to represent the girl. But you don't really even know where to start because you don't got the experience for this type of case. Why are you doing it? Find somebody else to do it. What is it? They don't have the money? Like, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. How is this? What are we doing? So anyways, like I said, we do have 27 minutes left in this chapter. I cannot make this any longer than what it already is. I just will not do it. But if you do want me to do a part 2 and we can pick up right here where we left off on Friday, I'm willing to do that. If you don't care and you just want to go buy it or borrow it on your own, I believe it's out right now, so you are free to do that. And put down in the comments, like, what would you do if you had 2 kids and one killed the other? Like, where do you stand when the trial starts? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you behind your daughter showing support, or are you on the opposite side trying to get justice for your son? I need to know what Nico did. What did he do? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is crazy. Anyways, you guys, I hope you enjoyed that little snippet of chapter 1. Kristin, girl, I need you to kind of chop these chapters up next time. I'm feeling like you are a really good author. You know how to get the juiciness out of us, but you're just a little long-winded. You're just a little long-winded, girl. So I need you to chop it up for me. For people like me who like short chapters, because 30, 40 something minutes in a chapter is crazy.